All right, welcome to the Ball and Breakfast podcast. I'm Patrick Miller, along with Wayne Pois. We're here for our third and a half rendition of the Ball and Breakfast podcast. We had an emergency pod on our NFL episode, which kicked off, everything we do here on the pod. We followed it up with a NBA podcast that just covered the gamut as far as the game of basketball today, the 1990s Bulls. You can find all of the episodes we've created so far, even some snippets on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Apple, and even Anchor for those that are big Anchor fans out there. So we're pretty well connected, and definitely want to tip my cap to Wayne today for all of his work on the back end of things. We've had basically a crash course in how to put together a podcast, and I feel like within 2 weeks' time, he's done a great job. And just want to tip my cap to start it all off.
Thank you, man. It's a great learning experience. I've never done anything like this, so I appreciate it. And man, yes, it's been a lot of fun for sure. Just getting to understand things, understanding Canva too. We're trying to utilize Canva to help design some of the social outreach that we're doing, and then also some of the video editing as well. So great learning experience. And then hopefully y'all are enjoying whatever we're putting up out there. So.
Yeah, I really hope so too. I mean, I hope we don't have to lean on our parents or our siblings to really, prop us up as, podcast characters and things like that. I mean, hopefully, reaching people, everywhere in the world. Shout out to the United Kingdom for giving us a lot of hits in our first couple of weeks. But I guess with that, we've covered basketball, we've covered, football as well. Today's going to be all about Major League Baseball, which for me, that's my favorite sport of the big three. I'm a fan of all three leagues, but baseball especially, definitely it's close to home. It's really the first sport that I ever dove into and loved, and I still love to this day. I still play in men's leagues with fast pitch. So we had a game today. It was freezing, but our team won, and it's just the camaraderie of the game. The intricacies of how the game is actually played. Managers are still pretty important. The game's evolved over time, but we've had a lot of weirdness come out of baseball this past winter with labor negotiations, putting together a new collective bargaining agreement. We were all kind of sitting at the edges of our seats, hoping that there wouldn't be a strike. In 1994, we had a 253-day strike with our Chicago White Sox at the time being a pretty darn good team, one that was probably going to, make a huge playoff push. And I think I was 7 years old then, but I kind of still remember asking my dad, why is baseball not on TV? And he told me about a strike, and I really didn't get it. But we're not going to go fully into, the negotiations of it. But I thought a lot of new changes coming out of this, new negotiation, this new deal that they put together for the CBA has brought some interesting changes. The first being the universal DH in the National League. Beforehand, it was only pitchers would bat in the 9 slot usually. The occasional guy would bat in the 8 slot or what have you. But every team in the league will now have a DH. We'll go to a 12-team playoff format. We'll talk about that a little bit more. In extra innings, there will be a runner starting on second base like they did in the protracted year. Doubleheaders will be extended from, the 7 innings that they were doing the past couple of years to now 2 9-inning games like we were all used to growing up. There will be a draft lottery that, we'll talk about that, but brand new to baseball. We have one in football and basketball. There will also be draft pick inducements for teams that are trying to manipulate a player's service time. I think we all remember when Chris Bryant in Chicago was red hot in the minor leagues, and pretty much every Cubs fan, every Chicago fan was like, this is clearly a case where the team is just trying to, hold Bryant's contract for an extra year and, not have to pay him too much. And it might be the reason why, he left in part. And finally, that all covers 2022. For 2023, 2 other proposals that are kind of still in the works that I think are really interesting are the band shift. So essentially, players are stacking up, at least fielder wise, stacking up on one side of the diamond, take away hits from guys that just pull the ball. So they'll talk about how that could possibly change And then finally, they're talking about a pitch clock. So in basketball, we all know the shot clock. You get 24 seconds for an offense to shoot the ball. With baseball being the game it is, it's a longer game, but this will just help to, cut things down. So I know I've thrown out a absolute menu of options to talk about, but I want to turn it over to Wayne. Wayne, is there, anywhere from 1 or 2 or 3 that really stand out to you, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, for me, at least, as a fan of baseball, who's watched it all his life, when I was in Seattle and I missed watching the Chicago White Sox play, I would subscribe. Actually, I would pay the money to actually watch on MLB TV just to watch the White Sox and a couple other teams and all that there. So I love baseball, but universal DH I think is a big change. I think the idea is there's so many players out there like that were maybe in their late 30s that were kind of going down the hill that they just could not field. Like they just did not have that, but they can still hit. So I think that's great for them. It will elongate their careers. And in the end of the day, I think it's great for the fans too. If, Ken Griffey Jr., if all he did was, just wanted to hit and be a DH, he could do that both for the NL. He could have gone back to the Reds, his hometown team, do it there. I certainly think it gives a lot more players options with regards to that. So, I think it's good for fans and then also good for players, which I think in the end of the day, it seems like, overwhelmingly, like a lot of the changes that were made from the this new CBA deal kind of was in favor for better fan experience and then better things for the players. You talked about the whole Chris Bryant situation. I think the first time I heard about like a situation like that, I thought it was comical. I'm like, what time, if I am paying money to watch the best players in the world play a game, and when they're ready, I want them to play, period, no questions asked. So, if they're ready, put them out on there. What are we waiting for? So I'm thankful for all that. The 12-team playoff format, I think will be pretty cool overall. Part of me is, kind of liked the one game, winner take all type of thing to advance. But at the same time, I definitely felt like baseball, how is it that there was only 4 or 5 teams being selected when rest of the other leagues, they had half the league essentially being in the playoffs. So kind of things like those just didn't make sense to me. So I appreciate that there is this is probably the most change that baseball has ever done in an off season with regards to all the rules. So I actually appreciate it. I think it's good for the game as it grows. Generally your average baseball player, I think, is mid 40s or something like that. So, if the game's going to grow and continue, bring in more of that revenue, I think it's great for baseball. So, but those are the major ones. A ban on shift, I think, was another one I was looking at. I think, people like Kyle Schwarber, I think, will benefit immensely from this because, they're left-handed power hitters, I think, will their averages are going to go. I would love to see if Joey Gallo's batting average will go up, but I think that'll be part of the fun. So left-handed pull hitters, I think there's definitely going to be more excitement coming from that. Nobody wants to see a Kyle Schwarber bunt to the third baseline. So I think it's good for baseball, good for the fans, good for the players overall. I think it's going to be a better product. And the old school people, they're going to die. So we got to move on all of that. Yeah. With all that, what are your thoughts, Mr. Baseball Lover and all that? So.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on that, the nail on the head with the banning of the shift. I think it's so tough because I think there's 2 different sides to it. Like you're saying with lefties and a guy like Schwarber, or even, Joey Gallo. What's funny is actually Joey Gallo last year led the American League in bunt hits, which I just thought was so perfect because he still batted 200, But I think there's a saying that, just a thought process hey, if they're going to give you the entire left field side, just drop a grounder over there, just lay one down, obviously you're a home run hitter, but in the same sense, it's your fault if you bat 200 and you're just trying to pull the ball the entire time. Now that being said, that's the way that I would play in my men's league, but in order to sell tickets and to put fans in the stands, Glavin and Maddox used to always say, chicks dig the long ball, and, and I hate to say it, but when we go to baseball games, we want to see fireworks. We want to see somebody put one, out of the park. We want to see somebody put one in the upper deck, hit, parts of the stadium nobody's ever hit before, like a Giancarlo Stanton. So in the same sense, I think that with how the game, needs to kind of build a fan base and grow just as a sport and as, an entertainment outlet, there's just got to be a way that you can, maybe not drag players that naturally wouldn't be on the right side of the field or the left side of the field to the other side. And I think some of the comments I heard about the whole band shift is fielders would actually start with 2 toes on, the dirt. 2 feet on the dirt, but if you go around the infield, there'd be 8 feet have to be on the dirt to start. So you can't also bring a guy, from second base to, short right field to field a really hard hit ground ball. It has to be, kind of played like we would in Little League. Everybody has to line up at their natural positions. So I think that was a great proposal that I heard, and, we'll see what happens with those talks. As far as some of the stuff that's actually cemented for 2022, I think this whole idea of a draft lottery is needed. Baseball, it's a hard game to tank. I say that because as hitters, your batting statistics are everything to you. And as a pitcher, you would never allow, gopher balls to go over the plate so guys could crush home runs off you. But in the same sense, we've seen teams deliberately spend $30 million. And I hate to say it, if one team's spending 30 mil and another spending 200 plus mil, right, obviously the team spending the larger amount is going to, be a way better team than the other one. But I think the idea and principle of the draft lottery is a little flawed still. There's only the top 6 picks are locked into a lottery system. And I believe in the NBA, it's every team that, doesn't play in the playoffs, they get a certain amount of lottery balls. And I don't know how you feel about this, but one concept I've always thought about is, for this whole lottery ball thing and how many you get, why not just give every team that doesn't make the playoffs the equal amount of balls? That way you have teams that are clearly in the playoffs going to make that additional ad revenue and, get more fans in their stands. And for every team that didn't make the playoffs, which is something they're all probably going for, you get an equal amount of balls. It just says, hey, you're either going to be really good or you're going to be bad, but we're not going to, reward you for being the worst team. I think, there's clearly incentives baked into these sports that I either want to be the best, or if I'm not good enough, I want to be the absolute worst. But what are your thoughts on that?
That actually makes a lot of sense, I feel like. I would try to be a devil's advocate, but I honestly don't know what it would be. Because people are gaming the system, if you will. The GMs are gaming the system. Like you were saying, some teams are just not trying. They're selling their best players that they can, getting as much other prospects for them. So, and we're seeing that actually, honestly, across the, not just baseball, but across the other leagues too. NBA for sure. NFL as well. If it's like, if we're not going to be contending in the next 3 years or something, or 2-3 years, then we're just going to suck. We're going to sell all our best players. The fans are probably going to hate us, but and then we're going to have to try to sell them like, hey, we are looking to the future. We're trying to build something out here. So the product itself, if the idea is, we always want to be bringing the best as possible team out there, because we don't have anything to gain if we just keep on losing, then in a way that might be a good thing. So then you have less GMs trying to game the system, just sucking for a couple of years and telling their bosses, hey, we're just sucking for a while, keep your patience on all that. Trust the process, not to be all Philadelphia 76ers on it, but it's like, GMs are planning around that now. So, it could be just an adaptation, honestly, of like the leagues just be like, hey, get your shit together and try, so I would be open to that. Actually, it actually adds a lot more flavor to it, because I think, at least when I ever watch like the basketball draft, right, or the NBA draft, you kind of know who the overall like selection is going to be. There's always going to be like maybe one or two outliers out there, but statistically speaking, usually it's even in the current format. I think it's pretty. It's usually like how it ought to be. So yeah, maybe I would. I think it could be a good experiment. Like let's put a little bit of chaos and a little bit of fun into there, and then also cut teams from tanking overall. I will say though, like in baseball is the fun part, right? Like the draft, who knows what people are going to be doing, right? Like we've had so many first round draft picks just not pan out or even play in the league. So maybe it matters less there. Now you talk about, I'm like, maybe the NBA actually ought to be doing a little bit more of that. And I'd be curious now of how that would actually impact some of the super teams that we're talking about in the previous episode. But yeah, like I feel like in baseball, there's so many times that first round draft picks don't work, and then it's just a matter of how good your scouting is. So I would be open to it. I would totally be open to it, though. Yeah, put a little bit of chaos. Stop sucking, GMs. So
for sure. I think the only, to play devil's advocate to the idea of the equal amount of lottery balls, the only other thing I've ever heard is, the team in the small market is the one that ultimately is going to have the most difficult time, really, getting on the level of a Los Angeles club or a New York club or Chicago club, what have you. But, we've seen Oklahoma City, bring in the right executives, and year after year, that team was stout. And even today, I mean, I feel like they're just playing with the league. They're like, oh, we got 20 draft picks that we'll have in the next 4 or 5 drafts, and
right.
We've got a couple players that'll be anchors for our teams and such. But I think the playing field's really evened out over time, and I don't know if that's like the onset of even social media or just the internet, but living in a New York these days or living in an LA as a player it doesn't mean as much anymore.
Yeah.
You can be Giannis Antetokounmpo and you're in Milwaukee. You're a god out there, but you're a god in the sport of basketball. Everybody, turns on the game or watches it online, their phone, whatever. You're seeing, Giannis for Giannis. It's like, I think that whole, concept, so hopefully will just kind of slowly go away too. And, I'd love to see for some of these small market teams to, get owners in there that want to spend cash. And, I think Jock Peterson put out a really cool tweet the other day that kind of circled the top 3 clubs spending money, and they were all north of 200 million. And he circled the bottom 3. They were all, south of 40 million for the payroll this year. And he's just like, there's something's got to happen. You got to get these guys out, or, bring in some owners that want to spend some cash. And I think, a team that plays in Cleveland or, plays in Pittsburgh, they can be equally as competitive just with the right mix of ownership, executives and analysts, and then, hopefully some homegrown prospects that can, carry the club over time. But I guess we'll just have to see. I guess on the changes, the only other thing that I was going to bring up was this whole 12-team playoff system. So it's pretty interesting how it's drawn up. It sounded like the owners really wanted to go to 14 teams to get that extra playoff revenue. And to be honest with you, it makes the most sense when you just think about it in structure. You'd give the 3 division winners a chance to get a bye in each league. And then you'd have 2 separate wild card playing rounds, to get teams, into the mix and what have you. But this year's kind of funny because they're just going to take out of the, the 2 leagues, the National League and the American League, there's 3 separate divisions in each league. They're going to take the top 2 division winners, give them buys, and then the 3rd best division winner will play the worst wild card. Mm-hmm. And then the middle wild cards will play each other. But it's like, it just feels kind of off. I don't know what you think of that, or if you have any like great thoughts about it, but I just think it's like kind of inching their way into expanded playoffs.
Yeah, no, it is hard. It's like, baseball is like, I don't want to say the most different sport, but it's definitely a little bit different than say like the NBA or NFL. I feel like, because it's less about the single elimination. You have pitchers to worry about and kind of like their whole function too, and all that. I think the previous playoff format was not as good. So I think it's in a step in the right direction. I kind of laughed, actually. I was looking at last year's playoffs a little bit, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. The Dodgers and the Giants had like the two best records in the entire league, right? But the Dodgers were playing in the wild card, like, and it was a single elimination game type of thing. It was like, how is that possible? So, if I'm the Dodgers, big market team and all, I'm like, no, this something's got to give. Something's got to change a little bit here. So I get it from that perspective. I am glad that, it's going to the three games and all. And I like that they're adapting kind of like what some of the other leagues are doing with regards to, not having that one game, winner take all type of thing. As much as exciting it is, it's like there's got to be a better way to systemize it, right? Like, whether you're looking at common opponents, division play, all that. So I think it's better. I think there's that argument of like, not an argument, but there's that saying of, don't knock on it unless you have a better solution. I don't know what that better solution is. Like, I really don't. At least not that I've heard one that's like, okay, that totally makes sense. But for now, I think it's better than what was previously before. Hopefully the players get paid more too, and all with the new, it was like 100 million or 85 million for the 12 team playoff format now. So hopefully, but yeah, like I think it's better. I just don't know if there's a better solution at the moment. I do believe that whole setup, 1 and 2, or the one goes against, was it 4 and 5? Like, oh, what if the 4 wins, and then for the 2 versus 3 and 6, right? What if the 6 wins? Like, is it really fair then, or like, to play that, like, when the 1 gets the 1 and 4 and 5? Yeah, like so many things like that can occur. But like I said, I don't know if there's a better format that is out there that's been proposed, but yeah. So what are your thoughts?
I'm going to be the old man about this. And I swear, I promise you that I won't be, the old baseball guy about everything. But what was wrong with the 8-team system they had for so many years? Because if you actually think about it, besides playoff revenue, besides, getting clubs in there that, they just want to get more, playoff games established and get more cities involved and, all that good stuff. Like, I understand from a business perspective, and I think, yes, if I'm a fan of that city, it's awesome to say, like, hey, we're the 6th we're the 6th team in this league, but hey, we're in it, we've got a shot. Like, I love that. But baseball is funny, and I think NBA could trim down too, but it's like you play 162 games. Mm-hmm. NBA, you play 82 games, which is a lot of basketball games, but to play 162 baseball games, and you have these 3 divisions in each league, it just makes sense to me to say, hey, every division has a champ. I like that. Mm-hmm. And then there's one team that probably absolutely deserves a shot. And like your Dodger example, that had been the Dodgers, last year. Instead of them playing that goofy 1 game, they just go straight into a 5-game set with the best team in the league. And it's like, hey, if I'm the Dodgers and you get the Giants in that first round, maybe that's a little unfair. Like, maybe they could, find a way to finagle it that, there could be some exceptions there. But I guess I just see it as like, we've gone through so much already. Nobody likes to be outside in October when it's freezing out. And it's like these playoff expansions are like, where are you going to play these games? Is this going to bleed into November at some point? Like, I don't know. So that's my final say, I guess, on just how I see the playoff system. But I would agree. I think you said this early on, but I think this negotiation's just a great step for the MLB to make some good changes that could be lasting changes to a game that, honestly, as a baseball fan and somewhat player, mm-hmm. I truly think it needs to go through an evolution so that it can be more marketable to a younger generation. It can be more fast paced and, kind of keep up with the excitement that is the NBA and perennially has been the NFL. But do you have any last thoughts on changes or anything like that?
I was going to ask you, how do you think that this impacts Mr. Rob Manfred's being as the commissioner and all that, because he's gotten a lot of flack, in the previous years with regards to how he handles players, how he's been handling, just everything. I feel like I think he's gotten like the most flack as like the worst commissioner in all organized sports or something like that. How do you think this impacts his legacy like currently?
Man, well, Manfred, to call the championship trophy a piece of tin, and kind of everything that he did with, the whole Astro scandal. I mean, we could do an episode on the Astro scandal because I watched the Edge podcast, which I thought was excellent in breaking down the actual cheating going on behind it all. But to keep it brief, I'd just say that he's still got a ton of work to do. I mean, I think these changes are going to be monumental, just in terms of bringing more offense to the game and having more teams involved and such like that. But he just kind of comes off as being pro owner and very about his money, and very much about keeping a steady hand in the face of severe conflict. I just don't see him as like really making an impact at all. I mean, the way that he goes about his own business, but in any sense, I mean, it will be a part of his legacy. So I guess we'll see how long his tenure is, and kind of come to another debate at another point. But yeah, so far he hasn't been so hot.
Yeah, he's not high on my list. Yeah, I think that's where the NBA is just like Adam Silver. Like he like leans on the players. He's very player friendly, and yeah, to his credit, like people don't watch the these major sports leagues for the owners, like or whatever. They don't care. They want to see the athletes. They want to see the best possible players out there, and also putting them into position to help market themselves. There's been that talk with like Mike Trout. Nobody knows who he is, and he's the best player in baseball. It's like, yeah, well, there's so many like things like that. I feel like how the MLB treats their players and how they market them, and how there's a lot more restrictions I think on there with regards to that. It's like now compared to the NBA, like LeBron James has more Instagram followers than the NBA, like by double. Like
Jeez.
Put them out there, let them amplify, let them let them be their own business, right? So yeah, I think that's how I feel about that. But yeah, he's got a long way to go. So
so we'll see. But I guess when we now get into the actual season and what's coming up, I want to obviously there's no secret of where our fandom lies. I mean, it's on your head and it's in the back here. But I wanted to ask you, as we go into the 2022 season, before we start all the speculation, predictions, etc. Tell me about your White Sox fandom, and tell me about what you think about the other team in town in Chicago.
Oh, the other team. I like how you phrased that. No, yeah, I grew up in Darien, so southwest side, so I didn't really, everybody usually, even in the suburbs, like, oh yeah, the White Sox, because it was just kind of convenient, take 55 up there. So yeah, like I've always loved the White Sox. Frank Thomas, was my favorite player growing up. I kind of like Robin Ventura, and then I was like, I don't know about the whole manager thing, but Gold Glove, left-handed hitting third baseman, I thought it was really cool. So I've always loved the White Sox just growing up. I think I might have mentioned the previous episode. I was like, I always have a thing for the other guy, right? So it's like, yeah, I like Scottie Pippen more than maybe Michael Jordan some. I think as I grown older, and as Scottie Pippen has talked a little bit crazy, I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe not anymore. But yeah, I always like the other guy. Basically, I've Mark Burley is my favorite player like in all of baseball, and I don't know. There's so much to love. I've always watched the games, like I said before. I even subscribed to MLB TV just to watch them when I was in Seattle. There's always that just connection, to the South Side. And it's awesome more now that they're actually winning and have a great team and lineup and all. I know we've actually both you and I have actually seen Jerry Reinsdorf in person, and Rick Hahn too. So, we have, that deep connection there, but obviously it goes deeper than all that. Just growing up, like I'll listen to like, Ken the Hawk, you remember Ed Farmer too. Like, so, there's something just spiritual about baseball, and, the White Sox going towards, what do they even call it now? Comiskey. We'll just go there. Going to Comiskey, going on the red line, was always just a great time for me and my friends there too. I had a friend actually that she used to live in Chinatown, and then I would actually go drive over there when I was living in Darien, and then just use her parking and all that, so I can walk to the stadium. So, all that, I just love the community aspect of the White Sox too. And I don't know it's hard to describe, but there's just so much, something I've grown up with, and I just have this deep connection towards the South side, the best side. So yeah. What's your story?
Wait, but you didn't tell us about your thoughts about the other team in town.
Oh, I don't. I like living on the north side some. Got some nice restaurants and all that fun stuff there. Got maybe more Trader Joe's in the south side. So, but I think I try to avoid Wrigley Field during game days. But this past St. Patrick's Day, one of my friends said, "Hey, let's go to Wrigley." I was like, "Yeah, this is appropriate. I can do this." It makes sense. They got Do Right too, right across from Wrigley, which is my favorite donut shop. So yeah, like, I'm not gonna knock on Wrigley Field or Cubs fans in general. They're people too. But like I said, I'm always for the other guy. So yeah.
Well, that's fair. Yeah, I think like you're saying, I mean, what's funny for my story with baseball and kind of my fandom, I was actually a split fan, Cubs and Sox growing up. I'm from Skokie, right next door to Evanston, where I was born. And my entire family of aunts, uncles, cousins, we all grew up in those two cities. So we were right next door to each other, always saw each other. And from every day that I grew up, going to their places, there's just Cubs paraphernalia everywhere. And going to school, pretty much all Cubs fans. I think when my dad and my brother and I were growing up, we kind of like veered off a little bit. We'd go to Wrigley Field, do the Wrigley Field thing, but then my dad would also take us down to Comiskey Park. And there's just an electricity to Comiskey Park that I think you just have to go there and be there and, really get into it to kind of understand, because I think a lot of people, if we look at just socioeconomic, status and, where's the hot area in town, it's going to be Wrigleyville and all the surrounding neighborhoods in that part of Chicago. And for good reason. They're, great parts of Chicago. We went to DePaul and we were right there. And, I love Lincoln Park and, Lakeview, and, Wrigleyville has really fun, nightlife and everything like that. But, getting to that game and, seeing the Big Hurt and the pinwheels on the scoreboard, and anytime somebody put one out for the White Sox, there'd just be tons of fireworks. And you had an electronic scoreboard back in the day, which, I hate to say it, kids, but back in the day, Wrigley Field didn't have really anything besides the green board and, hot dogs and Cracker Jacks. But you got down to Comiskey, you could also get a Polish, you could get gyro strip steak, you could get funnel cake, you could get, just things that opened your mind. You were like, wow, like, baseball doesn't have to be so black and white. And I think once you get to middle school as a kid from around Chicago, you kind of have to put your flag in the ground. And I just realized I could never not put a flag down on the South Side. I could start to feel myself pulling that flag out of Wrigley Field and that whole experience. And I'm not here to bash on Cubs fans or anything like that, but singing and dancing all game, and kind of the Billy Goat talk back in those days, and blaming things on a fan for interrupting an out, and then the whole inning implodes. There was so many lovable loser qualities that came out with that club. And it just kind of, it started to rub me the wrong way, in a way that I was like, when I went to Comiskey, and I still think today, you can go sit out in the outfield and just talk to the person next to you about baseball. And that person's going to talk to you about the White Sox. They're going to know everything about the club, but you can just go down the line, the AL Central. You can go to the NL East and have a good conversation. And I hate to say it, sometimes when I've been at Wrigley Field, it's like, hey, well, I'm a freshman at DePaul and I'm from Iowa, or I'm from, Nebraska, or I'm from Minnesota. And again, no disrespect to any of our Midwestern state neighbors, but it's like, hey, I'm new to the city. I'm going to be a Cubs fan. And there's that feeling to it, like probably in New York with the Yankees and probably in LA with the Lakers, where, I like to root for the underdog. And I just like, that kind of that blue collar vibe you get when you go into the park. So right. I think I'll end it there in terms of my White Sox, story or what have you. But, kind of looking at this year's team and kind of where we've come, even, starting in the mid, 2010s, I think that's when we really started doing our reboot and, trying to build a team from the ground up. And, these last 2 seasons have really paid dividends for us to see our young guys come together as a core. But, going into this season, Wayne, what are some of your expectations or just overall thoughts about this roster, its construction, and, what it can do in 162 games?
I mean, I'm very bullish on it. We're healthy, again, knock on wood, right now, at least with everything. We have the best lineup, inarguably. I think anytime I hear, at least on the line, of anybody that is excited about, the Tigers or the Twins or whatever, they're like, yeah, if you guys get hurt or something like that, total, and we even saw this previous season, the White Sox, they had the injury bug this previous season, but they were still able to pull off 93 wins, right? So they had a pretty hot start and then kind of just fizzled a little bit there. The whole Yerminator thing, with Tony and all that. It's like, no, don't do bat flips. But yeah, I'm very bullish. Most talented roster. We got 3 good starters. We'll see what happens with Kopech. I'm very excited to see Kopech healthy and then going to be in the starting rotation. That kid, man, he can throw. So I'm very excited about that. We'll see about Dallas Keuchel. I hope that, the aging lefty, right? Hopefully he can shift out a couple wins, there, and also didn't have the best season this previous year, but he's a finesse left-handed pitcher. So hopefully, that usually ages fairly well. But we'll see about that. Top down that roster though, I'm so excited. Gonna get Luis Robert. He was killing it last season, so I'm hoping that a full season of him healthy, who knows what he can do. So I'm very excited about that. Tim Anderson, love the guy. Jose Abreu, he'll be back. List goes on. Eloy, holy cow. I know there's that question of right field, second base some. But I really like Gavin Sheets, at least his bat. We'll see about his fielding and all. But, hey, that's when Adam Engel's there. Put him in the late inning if that happens. But it's hard to go against Gavin Sheets' bat. He had 800 OPS this previous season. He's got a nice stroke there. So him and Adam Vaughn, I think, can put you in at right field from the looks of it. Or, Adam Vaughn, and it can always go to the left on off days. Second base, we'll see how that goes. I liked Nick Madrigal at second base. Maybe not worth the 4th pick, but kind of like what he brought, at least for this team. And also, I was kind of sad to see him leave for Kimbrel and all. But yeah, I think we got Josh Harrison, who had a pretty decent year this previous year. So even though he's a little bit older. If he matches what he did last year, I'll take that gladly. I think he had 60 RBIs and batted 279 or something like that. So I'll gladly take that. Solid defense there. So whether it be him or Worry at second base primarily, we'll see again. But the rest of the roster, it's hard to beat that. You can't really. There's no no team that has not spent $200+ billion that can compete with that lineup. So very bullish on there. Sure, the rest of the AL Central, I think, got a little bit better with some free agent signings here and there. Twins getting Correa, and Javi Baez going to Detroit. So, but then, Indians, yeah, they're probably going to have a down year this year. But we'll see what happens. Again, baseball is a crazy sport. The Guardians, if they do stay healthy, maybe, I don't know, we'll see. But again, baseball has to be a crazy sport, and it always seems like the Guardians, like, they have like this makeshift type of roster and they somehow pull things off. So, if I'm a Guardians fan, sure, hoping that happens, but I don't know how you can compete against the White Sox with the lineup, pitching staff, bullpen. Probably have one of the best bullpens in entire baseball. So, yeah. You got flamethrower, was it Croquette out there? Oh man. And then who did they added Joe Kelly and Hendricks there. So it's like, I don't know. Again, you just got to stay healthy and kind of pull through there. And maybe we do make some acquisitions here and there, but like, I don't know how you can't be happy with what we have right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you were saying about the AL Central makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, I think there were improvements across the rosters within the division, but from where they were starting, I'm also pretty bearish on all four teams. And, there is that thing about baseball where, the dark horse team could just ride a really hot April and May and kind of carry their way on throughout the season. But it kind of feels like everything has to kind of break right for all of our competitors. And we just have to come and play. Just come and play baseball. We're deep. We have guys, throughout the roster, 1 through 9, that can just put the bat on the ball. I mean, you went through the whole roster for the most part, which is a good thing, which is totally fine. But it's like you named a bunch of guys who are all-star caliber players, and Andrew Vaughn is still another guy that I'm just like gushing about going into this year, because he had to make a positional change in the outfield from, first base. He had to learn all that on like a division-winning club. So there's a lot of pressure there. You have Tony La Russa in his ear, which has to add additional pressure. And, he still found a way to put up, 15 bombs or so and, 60, 70 RBIs. I mean, his batting average could probably, use some points. But in your freshman year of baseball, when you haven't played any minor league ball for the most part, it's like to come in and just kind of put up numbers like that. It says a lot about who he is as a hitter, and he's still young. He's controllable. It's like, go down that roster and it's like you got a nucleus that will stay together for, a pretty long period of time if it all, continues to go well. I'm equally as bullish. I think that, the rotation has, its strengths and maybe a little bit of shortcomings toward the tail end of the rotation. But I think, with a guy like Kopech going into his first year starting, to have Ronaldo Lopez out of the, swingman role, who could throw, anywhere from 1 to 5 innings to spot him, or, maybe you bring up Vince Velasquez, who, we signed on a minors deal, and he's a flamethrower, and he's had tons of issues over time, and he's got, I think, a career 5 ERA. But, could we bring him in for 2 or 3 innings and just say, throw that cheese and just let it ride, and him having like an okay season? Sure. The bullpen, incredibly deep with right-hand flamethrowers, some great lefties, like you said, Crochet, and even, Aaron Bummer is still a guy who's been there and done it. And it's like, I think the one thing when I look at the White Sox, as far as a roster right now, with right field and even second base, I'm technically okay with second. And I love Nick Madrigal, by the way. I could talk about Nick Madrigal all day, because I watched him play at Oregon State, and he just was he was like Tony Gwynn reincarnated from the right-hand side. And I love how he plays baseball. It kind of reminds me of Craig Biggio, to be honest with you, to give you like the comp. But the power is lacking. Who says that couldn't happen in guaranteed rate field? But that was a hard one to swallow. But I think the one thing that I see that'll probably change sometime between now and the trade deadline is we're probably going to have to look at some of these guys that are corner outfield, first base, third base, young, either minor leaguers or even, guys that played with our club for 1 or 2 years, but I really do think we'll probably have to package up some of those guys, whether it be a Sheets with a Burger, or maybe it's Cespedes with, I wouldn't want to say Colas off the bat, but it's like we're going to have too many guys playing the same positions and doing too many of the same things, where just from a roster construction standpoint, it'd be nice to like go out to Oakland and say, hey, you're trying to get rid of Manaya or Montas. Like, we've got your first baseman and your, right fielder of the future in this deal. What do you say? But the only other two things I was going to say is about our chances and everything that I'm seeing is I didn't like from last year's playoffs kind of I wouldn't even call it swagger. It was more cockiness from our young guys. It was like they wanted to show you that they were big league players. Like, I'm being a little picky, but Eloy, not really wearing his cap. It was kind of just hanging off his head. And then he had like 4 or 5 chains on, and his shirt was, down to his lower chest. It's like, you got to know that you're 22, 23, and you still haven't done anything yet. Like, you're a star on paper, but we need to see you put up 40 bombs with 100 RBIs 2 or 3 years in a row, and then we'll take you seriously. And I think the game of baseball really humbles guys like that, that just think they're ahead of where they truly are. And I think with our roster, we have an amazing amount of talent, but I kind of get concerned about our, veteran leadership, our composure in tough pressure situations where maybe other clubs have that depth ready to go with guys that have, been to the playoffs 4 or 5 times, or, every year for that matter. So that's one concern I have. And then the other concern I have, which kind of opens up, the rest of our conversation about baseball, but it's really about the other top teams in the league. I think the White Sox stack up with just about all of them, but there are a few that, we can talk about whenever you're ready, but just a couple clubs that I think are, loaded with talent and experience and, could really give us a tough time, come October.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I'm very bullish. Yeah, but there's definitely like, we it's not like we went deep in the playoffs. Like, I was like, yeah, is that the best we can do? I mean, it was like our first time in a while type of thing, but at the same time, like, is that really the best we could put forth? I mean, there's definitely holes, or maybe not holes, but there are some concerns with their attitude. I honestly was not the biggest fan of Tony La Russa. I think he kind of like grew on me a little bit as the season was going on. Like, there's the whole Yerminator thing. I was like, you got this guy. He's like, he was like the talk of the town and just killing it. And, when he was like saying, yeah, you can't do that at all. I don't know. It just seemed like he lost joy or whatever. Whether I don't know if that was it, or people just figured out, maybe we shouldn't toss as many fastballs at him or something like that. So yeah, I mean, it was just things like that. I think kind of like make me question, I guess, the potential of the team, because they have all the talent. They honestly do. And this previous season was the best, or the first time that they kind of put it all together. So, I mean, yeah, hopefully we see better things this season. But yeah, all the talent in the world. But I can see that with regards to, maybe the attitude, maybe the focus isn't there, to just like, hey, we're here to win it. Like, this is business for us, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. I guess with that, I mean, it sounds like to both of us, there's still, a team to really not mess with, and one that could absolutely make a push all the way. When you scan around the league, maybe we'll start in the AL. Are there any clubs that kind of give you, jitters, or just ones that are stout enough to, really make us push to, get to the World Series?
Yeah, in terms of like getting to the World Series, I mean, the AL East, obviously, like, it always seems like, this previous year, there were 4 teams with 90 wins and all. And like, did any of them get necessarily any worse? I know the Rays, I think they got rid of like Drew, or was it Drew Smiley? Like, did they really even get worse by that much? I don't think so. So, Blue Jays, they might be able to take the next step. I know they're pretty young and all, so, maybe their progression is going to take them a little bit higher, especially as the Yankees and Red Sox. There's been some additions and some subtractions there, but there's definitely some question marks, I think, for maybe both those teams. Granted, they have the payrolls, so I could potentially see the Blue Jays maybe taking a step forward. We'll see what happens there. I see the Mariners. Like, where did they come from?
Yeah.
That was pretty amazing. I think they made some, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think they made some offseason additions as well to help them out. So I like what they're doing over there. So I think that they can honestly, they might be able to take the division away from the Astros. I know they got rid of Correa, which I know he's kind of been up and down. I was actually kind of astonished to see that Correa never hit 30 homers or got 100 RBIs, actually. He's got a talented roster and lineup with him. It's like, how did that not happen before? So, I think I heard somebody saying this like on another podcast. Actually, was like, if there's one team that can get rid of a player like with the talent level of Correa, it's the Astros. They got plenty of it, right? So they can utilize those resources for other things. Maybe get another starting pitcher. Fine tune the bullpen. They are getting Verlander back. I know he's like 39 or something like that now. So we'll see what he's got. He came back from Tommy John. But if I learned anything from Verlander, the guy is a competitor. So even at 39, I think we'll at least get something out of him. We'll see. I don't know if this. I don't want to say if this is the end or not, because time and time he's proven, like, I know when he was like a 35, 36-year-old pitcher, like we thought he was going to be going away, like on the wayside. Nah, he stepped up his game and won a World Series and everything there. So we'll see if he's got anything left in the tank. But with that being said, it definitely seems like the Astros could be back, but I think the Mariners might take the AL West, actually, going forth there, especially with also the Athletics being basically a AAA team now, and the Angels they've only just had those two stars basically, and not too much around them. So, and if there is a team in the AL Central that I think will compete against the White Sox, I'm thinking it might be the Twins. I think it might be the Twins. I think that's where I'm gunning for. I'm not gunning for, but I think that's, if I were to make a bet on who would be, finish second, it'll be them. So, but we'll see. The Tigers definitely have some, they're young. They have a young pitching, so maybe they do take a step. We'll see. But I think the Twins could probably compete in this coming season. So, those are my thoughts. Would love to hear, who do you think could be kind of that dark horse or take that next step?
Yeah, I think with how you kind of frame the AL East, I think taking another step would probably be with the Blue Jays, just in terms of just the sheer amount of talent they've got on that roster too. It reminds me of a club that's pretty similar to ours. Now they have Vlad Guerrero. They've got Bo Bichette. They just made a trade last week. They got rid of Randall Grichuk and brought in Raimel Tapia from the Colorado Rockies. They're a very right-hand heavy lineup. But in general, when you go across, the entire diamond, it's like, man, this is pretty scary. Like, they traded for Matt Chapman, who's one of the best defenders at third base, had an off season last year and typically strikes out a lot and will bring a low batting average, but in general, he can put the ball out at a pretty decent rate. And I think, maybe last year aside, he's still young, he's controllable. They signed him to, a shorter deal. But in general, just a guy who can really play the game of baseball, the right way and bring, some veteran leadership to the clubhouse too. The rotation, they got Berrios. They've got Hyunjin Ryu, who, again, had an off year last year, but I think he's pretty consistent at the end of the day. They signed Kevin Gossman, who was pretty awesome for the Giants last year. He'll come back to the AL East, and he didn't have a great time with the Orioles, but I think he's a little bit more seasoned now, so he probably, will bring an extra, just amount of confidence with him to Toronto. They also had Alek Manoah, who broke out last year as a pitcher, and I just think, he's a flamethrower, and he's a guy who can, definitely take a step with that club. But yeah, all in all, I think, they were right on that brink. They were kind of even with us last year in terms of like how much they actually did in October. And, I just kind of see us and them being, the two teams in the AL that kind of, take that extra step. And really, I would probably put them in my ALCS. I mean, those two teams against each other, if I had to guess today. Other teams in the AL, and I guess going to your point about a breakout, I've been thinking about this one. I do think the Angels have improved their roster, just in the form of Rendon and Trout being back in the daily lineup with everybody they already have there. Joe Adell and Brandon Marsh are two young outfielders that they put a lot of stock in to just kind of obviously be, superstar caliber players. And I think last year at the end of the year, second half, they showed that they can, take an extra step and really, start to be everyday contributors, which will be huge in that lineup. Outside of that, just kind of going through the rotation, Patrick Sandoval is a guy who really pitched well in the second half. They brought in Thor from New York, which, I'm kind of in question about. And in general, they got Raisel Iglesias that they signed to a new deal too. But I know there's an extra couple of pitchers that I'm, leaving out at this moment. But I do think they're kind of my dark horse to just, use the offense and, the experience that they have there. Shohei Ohtani is obviously the guy that I'm missing, both with the bat and on the mound. But, if he can be a guy who's a, rotation anchor for a club that's going to hit a lot, with the loss of Correa with the Astros and kind of the loss of momentum for that club. I know they still have a lot of young talent, but part of me thinks they don't go into the season with that jolt of excitement, that jolt of energy that a club really needs to, get them over the hump. But I agree with your Mariners choice. I think the trade with Jesse Winker is solid. So I think in the West, you're going to have, a decent battle out there all year. And, whether the Mariners or the Angels take the division or, the Astros are in the mix, I do see, at least now, both those clubs making it via division or wild card. But if I was to kind of touch on the AL Central too, just I guess the second best club or the team that are probably going to give us the most fits and headaches. I like your Twins pick. I do think the Tigers are a team to watch out for. Just with Casey Mize and Tariq Skubal kind of really putting together great, campaigns last year. They're young and they've got all the, evaluators touting him as two of the best young starters in the game. They brought in Eduardo Rodriguez from the, Red Sox. So, their rotation is starting to shore up a little bit. I know they got Michael Pineda, who's kind of a journeyman, but he might fit in well to just give them a little bit of depth. I'm not a big Javi Baez guy, but I got to respect his defense and his ability to somehow get a, pretty high WAR score every single year. But I do think Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green, two guys that haven't played yet, kind of joining that roster. I think they're a team to just kind of keep an eye on and hope that they don't get hot, to start off the year and kind of, scratch and claw their way through the division. But, overall, I feel pretty, sound about the White Sox. And, as far as breakouts go, I think that's kind of where I'm at in the American League, at least.
Got it. Yeah, no, I think that's cool. I do like the Mariners. I know they got, I think Kyle Seager retired. So, I mean, there's definitely that, but I think I was just really impressed to see them. Like I said, I have some connections in Seattle and there was definitely a lot of excitement there. But yeah, I could definitely see, the Angels, they have a lot of pop there, for sure with the two mega stars. And I'm hoping for their sake that they can make a run in the playoffs though. I think it would just be great for baseball to have Mike Trout and Shohei, like, hey, these are our two biggest stars. Let's promote them a little bit more, right? I just think it's good for the game overall. So, I'd hope to see them in the playoffs. But, yeah, we'll see. Baseball's a fun game. So.
It's fair to have pessimism about them, though,
because sure.
they've completely disappointed, big signing after big signing. I guess I kind of, go into that prediction a little hesitant, but in the same sense, I look at them on paper and I'm just like, if you don't at least get a wild card slot this year, like you've really drop the ball.
Then you got it. Then yeah, maybe you do got a tank and all that or whatever, and trade your two best players. Yeah, we'd love to see it, but yeah, until something actually happens, it's definitely a wait and see. So.
Yeah, and I won't ignore the other teams in the East. I felt like you covered them pretty well, so I'll leave it at that. But looking at the National League side of things, I guess what are your thoughts as far as who are the teams to beat, and then do you have a breakout on that side?
Yeah, I don't necessarily a breakout, but I mean, I could potentially see the Phillies. It's one of those teams that I want to hate because I don't know. It's like they got Harper and all that, but then Schwarber signing I think was pretty interesting. And like I mentioned, is it 2022? I think the shift is on. So if that were to happen, then I think that's a great thing for them with getting Schwarber there, since he's pretty much a pull hitter with regards to the right side of the field. So,
sure.
So I think that their lineup's a lot stronger there. They won 82 games this previous season, but like I said, it's hard for me to cheer for them. But at the same time, they're that making some moves I think to help advance them overall. If you put the OPSs of potentially Schwarber and Harper, kind of in the same that same lineup, 1-2 or whatever, it's hard to be like, yeah, they're not going to get that many runs there. So, pitching is always the fun part. But in the AL East, I think, with the Braves and their roster, I can see them competing with that firepower. So, I want to see the Brewers take the next step. It'll be interesting if that happens. I know they won 95 wins. So it's like, how much can they, get better? But I think they're great for baseball as a baseball lover. I love watching them play. I love their pitching. Their pitching I think is one of the best out there. So, I love a good pitching squad. So I'm hoping that they would take the NL Central away from that other team, I guess. And Cardinals obviously too. With the NL West, I mean, I know I actually love it's like he's not dead. Buster Posey, like retiring and everything. He was like my favorite, I guess, NL player, if you will. Just ultra competitors. So we'll see if they take a step back. If that is something that happens there. The Dodgers just have again, they spent a lot of money there. Ridiculous lineup and all, like adding Freddie Freeman to and then, if their pitching can be, they definitely have some great pitching over there. So if they can kind of match what they did, when they won the World Series a little bit there, just kind of continuing on. I mean, how could you not go against them? I know they lost Kenley Jensen in this offseason. So, that being said, they have a really good bullpen anyways, with regardless, apart from that, so much so that they're like, oh yeah, Jensen, go ahead and join the Braves. So I see, still potentially the Dodgers taking it. I mean, I think the Rockies can make a run a little bit there. I know they added Chris Bryant, but I'm not going to hold my breath there. I know Padres, it always seems like they make all these signings, but, they put up a kind of a mediocre product out there. I'd hate to see Manny Machado. I know there's definitely that whole, let's bring him to the South Side a little bit. But if they can do anything, that'd be great, I think. But yeah, it's hard to go against Dodgers, and it's hard to, I think, go against the Giants too in this case. So I think the Dodgers will probably take the division in the NL West, but just because they're just so talented there. But then I do see the Braves kind of continuing on, kind of off from what they did last year with winning the World Series. It was kind of sad to see Freddie Freeman go. I know they got Olsen to kind of replace him, but overall, they're still a young, talented team, even though they won the World Series. They'll probably won 90 games this season at least, I think. But we'll see with regards to that. But yeah, I think those are my overall thoughts. Would love to hear, kind of what you're thinking for the NL.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe a more competitive league. If I had to just put it down on paper just to say I think the teams coming out of the NL will be a lot more stout than those in the AL. Looking at the top, if you look at the West, I think the Dodgers, cream of the crop. I mean, you add Freddie Freeman to a lineup with Mookie Betts and Trey Turner and, Justin Turner, and then you have, Cody Bellinger that, hey, a couple of years ago, he was an MVP and, one of the better catchers in the game. And you just look at the rotation, it's like, Walker Buehler, Julio Urias, you've got Clayton Kershaw still. He may not be, a Cy Young candidate, but I think he'll put up decent numbers. Tony Gonsolin might be, in store for a breakout this year. And, again, they've lost some bullpen depth, but, with a lineup that great in over 162 games, I think they'll find a way to, win 100. And then, at the break, maybe add a pitcher to whether it's a reliever, extra starter, something like that. But I have no fears or qualms about them, having a hard time getting there, even if they lack a little bit of pitching depth at the back end. But I kind of agree with what you're saying about the Giants. I think it's a team that might take a slight step back. They lost Gossman as well, and, Posey retired, but it also kind of felt like a mashup of, savvy veterans, and maybe they were playing a little bit over their heads last year. Now that might be, the start of a new kind of culture there, with, the GM that they kind of poached from the Dodgers, system. And I think that was even via, Tampa Bay as well. So just coming from the right spots in terms of how to construct a team. I think they'll be competitive, but I can't say they're a shoo-in for a playoff spot, but we'll just kind of have to wait to see. I agree with you on the Padres. Fernando Tatis was, riding his motorcycle, I guess, outside of his contract, the guy makes, 300 plus mil or whatever it is now. And it's like, he kind of had to lie about, how he broke his wrist and stuff. So it's like, there's that thought of just like, they brought in all the star power, they're not getting it done, but it's also just about maturity. I think if you're making that much money and you're the cornerstone of a franchise, it's a really bad look, and just kind of gives you a hint of like, where are his priorities and what does he really care about going into this year? I've never liked Manny Machado. I just kind of see it as like Machado and, less so Tatis, but with Machado, it's like you can put up all the numbers you want, but if you kind of bring a certain edge or, negative presence attitude to a clubhouse, and maybe that was part of the Correa, lack of suitors. It's like there maybe are some guys in the game that can produce, but you just don't want them in your clubhouse. And I don't know, the Padres just kind of give me that vibe where you can stack talent upon talent, but they're just not going to get there. Nothing else to say about the other teams in that division, at least as far as contenders go. NL Central, completely agree with your Brewers fandom or, just praise, to shower on them. I think that starting trio is scary. Corbin Burns, Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff. Those are three of the best starters in the game, probably top 15 as a trio. And that's all on one team. They've got even some younger guys, Aaron Ashby, who pitched really well in the second half. They've got just a lights out, end of game closer and Josh Hader. Devin Williams last year was a great, setup man, and he was the year before, but he actually broke his hand, I think, punching a locker or something of the sort. So he was, and the hitting side of things, it's like they kind of feel like a Tampa Bay Rays type of, team with like a star or two, and then a bunch of, just young castaways and such. But hopefully Yelich can have a bounce back year, and Willie Adames broke out at shortstop for them. Luis Urias was a really useful player on the infield and everything else. But Hunter Renfroe came over from the Red Sox, and I think he had a great year with Boston, just putting up power numbers and being just a solid component of the lineup. But it's another team where I think at the break they'll find some pieces to add to their nucleus, but definitely a scary team. And that's my favorite in the NL Central. Cardinals are always going to be the Cardinals. Arenado, Goldschmidt, Dylan Carlson breaking out last year. I don't have to go through the entire roster. I think that in general, I see them as kind of like pushing for a wild card spot. Cubs, they may as well also. they added some pieces and parts to kind of be competitive, but then kind of just like wait and see. So it's like you're not really sure the commitment there, but that's ultimately what I think of the NL Central. And then I think the East is going to be just a dogfight like it usually is. Your pick with the Phillies is great. Adding Castellanos and Schwarber to that lineup is just going to pay dividends for them, throughout the entire year. And you're hoping on an Aaron Nolan, bounce back, and Zach Wheeler to be healthy. But my favorite, is probably I'm going to stay with the Braves. I thought really long and hard about this over the last couple of weeks because I at first didn't really like the whole idea of not giving him that 6 year. But when you take a step back and you look at the package that they gave up for Olsen, it was pricey for them from a prospect standpoint. But to bring a guy in who is 27, 28 years old versus Freddie, who's in his early 30s, and to kind of instantly sign him to a very club-friendly extension, which they already did with Acuna and Albies. They got him on some very affordable contracts for long commitments. That team didn't need a whole lot extra, even taking Freddie out of the mix. And it's just like, they look scary again. I like Max Fried as a starter. I think he'll take a step. You got Ian Anderson out there as a starter. Charlie Morton is just timeless as a starter, but they're a fun team to watch. I think the Mets will be good, but I'm not going to buy the offseason hype as far as, just because you signed and traded for all these, big name veterans, still got to play 162. And, I love Jacob deGrom, but part of me is just like, is he going to give you half a year? Is he going to give you a quarter of a year? It's hard to put your finger on, but I think they're making the right moves and they're making the right steps there. One dark horse I'd say for the NL is the Miami Marlins. I think that if you just look at their rotation and their rookie rotation depth, they've got maybe 8 starting pitchers that could go in the major leagues. Sandy Alcantara was top 10 last year. Pablo Lopez is making strides. They've got, a lot of buzz around Jesus Luzardo, who was a cast-off from Oakland, but he's having, a great spring training. He's more of a, kind of a depth piece for them. They're not even kind of, I guess they weren't coming into this year expecting him to be, one of their top 2 pitchers. And Trevor Rogers had an awesome rookie year last year, young lefty, but they've got Max Meyer. They've got, a bunch of kids that are coming up in their pitching staff. And to me, that's always the cream of the crop for any team. I always look at the pitching first, and then I'll think about their offense. But, Miami doesn't have all the sluggers that others in the NL East do, but I think that we will see a 500 or better Miami Marlins club. So that's going to be kind of my sneaky pick for this year. But I guess to wrap on baseball and to wrap on this episode, given all we've talked about, we've kind of covered the landscape from again a pretty high vantage point. But how do you see the playoffs kind of shaking out? And do you have a World Series prediction to throw out there at this point?
Yeah, World Series prediction. What would I want? I think that's one way to look at it. I would want like White Sox versus like the Brewers, probably. What I think might happen is probably I think the Dodgers will be back into the picture. They just got way too much talent, I feel like, and I think they'll take. I think they'll get back in there. As much as I really like what Atlanta's all about, getting back Jansen and all, it's hard to look at the Dodgers and be like, yeah, that's not a World Series type of team going forth. If I were to pick another team apart from the White Sox to advance the World Series, as much as I hate it, I think possibly the Yankees. I think that's that. As much as I think I just puked in my mouth when I said that, but they got the firepower that they've always had. I think the firepower some there. It's just, do they show up in the playoffs and all that? Do they just not strike out as much in the playoffs? And also, it'd be interesting to see how, moving on from Gary Sanchez, kind of transpires for them. Do they just kind of advance a little bit there? I think, their pitching can always improve. They can always enhance it. I mean, they have one of the best pitchers in Garrett Cole. So it's like, great, you got that. And you always have Aroldis Chapman in the back, who just, will gun it past everybody. But, if there's a team that can add maybe another pitcher or two, yeah, why not the Yankees, for the future. So I think that they're better set up, more so than the Red Sox. I know the Red Sox added Trevor Story, but I just question their pitching, like we were saying, right? I think there's been some subtractions. I think they got rid of Eduardo Rodriguez, I think it was. So like, I don't know what their pitching is going to look like next year. So I mean, we'll see what happens. But if I were to bet, Yankees. Yeah, I'd rather not see them. I'd rather see the White Sox. But I think we were talking about before, earlier in the episode. I just don't know. I think that the White Sox will probably get out of the first round. I'm hoping just to get that progression, be like, okay, maybe we need to focus a little bit more, taking this baseball a little bit seriously. Maybe they do add some more depth just in general. Maybe they do add that extra starter that can help win some games and take us more in the playoffs. I just don't know. But for right now, I think I might actually go with the Yankees, the Yankees and Dodgers. Good God. That's what I think will happen. But I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love to see the Brewers kind of take the next step forth. I think they signed McCutchen, who's one of my favorite players, just in general, one of the best ambassadors of the game too. So hoping he can add some of that. And that probably one of the reasons why they signed him, adding that veteran presence, some postseason experience to kind of take that things to the next level a little bit. So I'm hoping that does provide some more value to that excellent pitching squad. So that's what I'm hoping. But I look at the Yankees, I look at the Dodgers, and I'm like, those are some nasty lineups. Those are some nasty looking teams. So, but yeah, want to hear from the baseball guy though. Who do you see as your World Series picks?
Yeah, I maybe preface all this by saying usually I don't pick the White Sox so that we get better juju. Maybe I really think they're the best, but I'm not going to say it. So I'm going to hold back on that, though. I think that what you're saying about just prove to us that you can win around that to me would be actually really big, because there's a lot of clubs over time, like the Minnesota Twins were notorious, first round exit type teams. And it's like, I just don't want us to be that team where it's like, we've got this amazing roster, but we just, we can't put it together in a short series. And that would be huge for me. And I'm going to keep my expectations grounded on that. Now, when I think about who is the best team in baseball, it's, to me, hands down the Dodgers. But I also think that baseball is, about chemistry. It's about, how you've played with your club throughout the entire year. Do you have high character guys? Do you have guys that, want to have that kind of desire to get over the hump and win it all? And I think what you're saying about the Braves makes some sense, because they just raised the banner. So, regardless of their talent, I think they'll be in the mix. I think they're, a for sure playoff team, but it's like, is that desire there to kind of repeat or to really, get back onto the mountaintop? Now, the one thing about juju that is going to hurt the Dodgers is that Dave Roberts came out later last week and basically said that, for sure, we're going to win the 2022 World Series. Which is just bold as can be. I mean, it's just like, hey, I've got KD and Steph Curry to my left and right, and we're gonna, knock you out in 7 games or so. It's beyond bold for baseball, because anything could break any team's way at any time. But I guess when I look at the teams and kind of where they've been in the playoff mix and who has the right formulas that I'm looking for to kind of take that next step and to go to the World Series, I'm going to throw it out there, and I'm just going to say I think the Brewers take the Dodgers down in a 6 or 7 game series in the NLCS. I truly believe that those starting pitchers are, seasoned enough. I think they've got enough innings in their arms, and I think that, supplementing them with a trade deadline bat or extra arm, I think that, those are some scary guys to face in a short series. And then, if there is one team that could curtail those bats, when you look at Freeman, Betts, Turner, all the, just really 1 through 8 or 9 with the Dodgers, it's scary. So that'd be the only team I could see knocking off the Dodgers in the NL. So I'll just throw it out there. I'll say it. On the AL side of things, the East is going to be a fight. We didn't even talk about the Rays, which year in, year out, they're just good at manufacturing playoff teams. And, their pitching is a little younger than it usually is, and it's a little less experienced. But again, it's the Rays. You can't count them out. But I will kind of go with the team we both highlighted in the Blue Jays and just say that I think with their additions on the pitching side, they gave Berrios that extension. They brought in Gaussman, who hopefully is over his AL East hiccups. Those bats are potentially, maybe not 1 through 9 as deep as the Dodgers, but at the top end of that, I think that's going to be just a really productive club. And, they were in it last year, just as far as, they've been to the playoffs. They know what that feels like. I just kind of see them, just finding their way to the World Series. But, and I guess when it's all said and done, I'm going to pick the Blue Jays in 7. I don't want to go against the Brewers, but I just think that the Blue Jays do it right on the pitching side and the hitting side, whereas I'm still kind of wondering whether Milwaukee can put together, enough production to get those guys over the hump.
Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah. Yeah. I think it makes sense because, in the playoffs, when you have 3 starters, it is really beneficial if they can take down, a top offense like what the Dodgers have and all. So I'm very I would love to see that. I love it when pitching just takes down and mows down people. I loved it when Kurt Schilling or Randy Johnson's like, oh, is this what you got, Yankees? Let's tear this down a little bit here. Even though Luis Gonzalez got that last hit over there on Mo. So no, I would love to see another team kind of just take it, take that run in the playoffs. I'd love it to be the White Sox, but again, what you're saying is they gain that proper moxie, and it would be awesome to see Toronto back in there and then just taking it, especially with the young talent of all the former MLB players' progeny coming back and all.
Right.
I love it that their entire roster is like, oh yeah, my dad played and all. So, I think those are great picks. I think there's definitely a lot of great reasoning too. So I think it makes sense going forward. But I think we're both like, can we just get the White Sox to win the World Series? Can we just please? But yeah, get out of the first round, right? So yeah. I think I think that would be like, okay, I think next year we gotta win it all now. So,
and it's not to say I don't want to see the Sox absolutely drop the hammer and just do it this year. I try to guard myself from getting really excited or talking a bunch of trash before we actually backed it up. It's like, let's just let this thing ride. I think we're absolutely in play for everything that's on the table. I just think maybe, might be a game or two here where, some of these other clubs might just get that little advantage just with some of the experience or, just sheer talent. I really hope we come back this year just composed. I think the regular season is going to do, really well for us in terms of just output and getting victories throughout the year to get us into the tournament. Mm-hmm. After that point, it's just, hopefully we're hot and hopefully, our arms are all healthy. So, but I think with that, that definitely covers it. I didn't know if you had any, closing thoughts for today's episode or any other baseball thoughts that come to mind.
It's a beautiful game. I really love baseball. It makes me look forward to fall, actually. So it's like, the summer's gone, but playoff baseball, nothing beats playoff baseball. I feel like, yeah, it's the enthusiasm you see in the crowd. Sometimes I definitely feel like, the casual baseball game, it's like, yeah, okay, it's, the crowd isn't always into it and all that. Playoff baseball, everybody's like, it's hooting and hollering and everything. It's all focused on the game there. Because like, if I'm gonna pony up, a bunch of money for the playoffs, like I'm gonna come there because I want to be it, and not because somebody dragged me or whatever, right? So, I love playoff baseball. I'm excited for this season. I'm very optimistic for the White Sox. I think it's one of those, yeah, they have great talent. It's like, but do they all fit in these pieces? We got first baseman playing outfield. What's going to happen? So I'm very optimistic. I think Rick Hahn will make the right decisions going forth, and Rick Hahn we trust. And I would love to see the Brewers versus White Sox World Series. So, but we'll see. I love this game. I'm looking forward to the opening day and all. And yeah, you have any last words?
I mean, I'm totally happy that opening day is on, the forefront next, this upcoming weekend, going back to Chicago, our homeland, and going to partake in my annual fantasy baseball draft. It's something that I just look forward to every year. I mean, some people look at me with kind of a raised eyebrow, like, you actually play 162 games of fantasy baseball every day. And it's like, yeah, it's an absolute grind and I love it. I will play till I die. Like, it's just, I don't know, it just gets me going. And, baseball, I really do think it has a lot of work to do with the younger fans. And I think that it is a slow game. And I kind of tell people, like, look, I would understand if you don't want to watch baseball on TV, because it's like watching golf. Like, if you don't fully understand the intricacies of the game, or, if it just moves at a slow pace for you, then maybe basketball or football are really your sports. But, to me, with everything involved from fantasy and, playing in my men's leagues and growing up and doing this with family and friends and stuff, it's just like everything I want to do. And happy to, turn on a game at, 8:00 at night. It could be two teams I don't care about, but I'll just sit down and watch, like, a good hour of it and just kind of enjoy my time. But, in that sentence, I feel like baseball is kind of for the older soul. And, it's one of those sports that I think, if you get it, if you go to games, if you're with your good buds or your family or something like that, I just think there's no greater game.
Yeah, it's an art, right? And with art, like, there's something that it resonates with, whatever art form it is, it resonates with you. And it's hard to describe, but it resonates some part of your soul or something like that, right? So whether it be some people with MMA, it's like, oh, roundhouse kick to the face, that's awesome, that resonates with my soul. Or, a bunch of grown men, throwing a ball and hitting it with a stick, right? Like, sometimes there's something that just makes sense to us, whether we like it or not, it makes sense. So yeah, whether it be, whatever sport it is, so sometimes the sport chooses us, not the other way around, right? So
I think with that was a great way to end it. I have nothing else to say. Just, thoroughly enjoyed speaking baseball with Wayne. For Patrick and Wayne, we are going to shut this one down. So have a good night and enjoy opening day.
Yeah. Take care, man.
All right.